I I like this chapter a lot, but I'm actually very bummed about one of the events. So, as we saw, Jogo was up on Yuji, like getting ready to make him consume all was it 10 fingers, and he said like all together he's eaten 15, and I thought he was gonna get a couple in, but then like the chapter literally starts with like he puts in the very last one, which I was very surprised about. Not gonna lie, I was actually very surprised about that. I didn't think it was gonna be um so heavily done in such a short manner of time. But then you have the two girls that were part of Ghetto's crew. They come back, and we find out a little bit about how their power works. I guess, well, one of them, because I know I'm trying to remember how both of their works. Because one of the girls has the phone, and I guess like she could take a picture and manipulate what's in the image. But one of my friends is one of my friends is a fan, is a big fan of Ghetto. Ghetto's, I think he said his favorites are like Ghetto, Nanami, and Yuta. And because of if you've read Volume Zero, you'd know more about. If you haven't read Volume Zero, essentially it's centered around Yuta, who you've seen mentioned in the series, but obviously you know more about him if you read Volume Zero. But in Volume Zero, Yuta and Geto are way more prominent characters. There's a little bit more of them in the story, or in that portion of the story. They're way more focused, essentially. And two of these girls, the first time I saw them was in Volume Zero, and my friend knows like them by name, like he can name them. And I was like, there's some of those characters that I know are important, and they were gonna have a bigger position. But I was always like, well, they haven't got to a point where I really know too much about them, so like. I don't know their names, and I was like, well, hopefully now that they're back, that I'll be able to figure out more about who they are, and their names will get more embedded in, into like my brain, and then eventually I'll get it. It's kind of like Naobito. Naobito was a character who I at first didn't really like. I think the only thing I thought of in his name that made me think about him was Obito, or maybe Hanami and Nanami, because at the start I got their names mixed up, and then I remembered I got their names down when we actually got more of them, and I was like, man, these guys are badass. I like both of them a lot. But like these two girls, man, I was so ready to like, okay, cool, I'll get their names down soon, and then their characters will get more like embedded into memory. One of those things where it's like you're like, oh, cool. Maybe when they do more, I'll remember who they are. Get more of their existence in the series into my brain. Um, that didn't go down very well. But they come back, and you have Sukuna take over Yuji's body, who tells Jogo to move, and immediately Jogo moves back, and I like this the scene because he's standing next to the two girls, and even though like he's way more powerful than them and they're a danger to he's a danger to them. They're all three of them are terrified of Sukuna. They're very intimidated by him. So it's not like oh, now I'm close to take care of you guys. It's sort of like, yeah, we should all probably kind of be careful in this scenario. But man, like you have him kind of up, and immediately the girls get down, like heads down, kneeling. They're trying not to piss this dude off, and Jogo he's on one knee. He's kneeling, but he's still like he says, he's like, do you really think that you think you're holding your head a little bit too high? But Jogo's like, his body can't move. He's a little afraid, and you can tell like the girls, it was all they could do just to work up the mobility in their body, like to overcome the fear, just to get down and fully kneel and like heads down, praying, like almost in a praying position. And Jogo, who doesn't make it in time, you get this panel, and I actually really like this because the abruptness of it, of just big scar chunk of his head off. And I'm wondering if it'll explain like his power, because it's like back when we first saw him, he diced that dude up, the dude who had his finger. It just completely just dices the guy up, and he did it to Yuji too, inside of like that little, the inside of their body when they're just kind of confronting each other. And he's just like, do you really think that what, like, just being down on a knee was enough? He's gonna get in the full kind of like full kneel and like praying position to him. And it was going so well for these girls. I was so happy for them. They're like, maybe they're gonna get revenge on the guy who took over Ghetto's body, and then they're asking him to free him, and you get this flashback where it's like they're brushing his hair. They're just kind of like, because we know that from the flashback where Ghetto, like when he turned, is these girls had been with him for years. Like meeting them was kind of like the turning point for him. It was the breaking point, rather, of when he saw how these people, these guys treated two sorcerers, and he was just not having it. So they've been with him like for years and years and years, and how much they love him and how much they appreciate everything that he's done for him and stuff. And they mention how, I guess they're like, what's the big deal about Satoru Gojo? And he's saying like he was his best friend, and they were really close together at one point. But after that, they're like, even though they hate Satoru for killing him, they were okay with it because it was the one person that Geto really kind of like saw as close to him, somebody that is like a genuine best friend. And I thought that was nice, even though like they appreciate him a lot. They acknowledge that like they aren't to that same level, but to them it's like that doesn't really matter because they're more in it for like what made him happy, and I imagine in their mind like it was like, well, dying to him probably wasn't as bad. Like at least he died to a friend. But they're pissed off that this dude has taken over his body. And they're like talking to him. They're like, we know where another finger is, and like if you kill them, we'll tell you where it is. And I knew that wasn't going to go well for him. That's unfortunate. And I've seen it in a couple TV shows. Like I'm not gonna act like I'm a thug. I've never been in a situation, in obviously in this in real life, but also I've never like been in a dangerous situation with like criminals in real life. But I know that like when they get to like a level of position height, and just in general, respect is very important. And when you offer them in this scenario, it wasn't like, we're gonna give you the finger, we want to like we'll give it to you, all we ask in return is like all we ask, like I would, and if I was them, I'd be like, we'll give you the whereabouts, but we beg that you do this for us. Like maybe make it out more like you're praying. Maybe you're praying for him to do something. Pretty much begging. I mean, in reality, begging it would probably work better. And when not just like he's a powerful guy, we know Sukuna is a big deal in the Jujutsu Kaisen world. Everybody, obviously since chapter 1, we've known that he's a big deal. The King of Curses, a huge character. And you're not going to be really being like, man, I got to demean myself to beg this guy to kneel to him and whatever, to get the job done. It's like, well, you're not only asking him for help, but you're probably going to want to do it just not to get killed. But I knew at this point when they made it up like they were giving him a, like, hey, we'll give this to you, but you got to help us. It seems kind of like a demand almost, or like some equal trade. And I was like, guys, I knew how it was going to go at that point. I was very sad because we know the cursed spirits are way more malefic. It's not like a similar series in its dark kind of tone that has like as a Chainsaw Man is devils, but Chainsaw Man has shown that like the devils, even though like the cursed spirits act very like they treat each other like very well, like that we know that like Jogo and Hanami and all that they kind of are like a family, but they don't like humans. They don't treat humans like equals, and like they don't have any positive real light towards humans. But like you have like Chainsaw Man, where it's just like, oh yeah, well they can learn, and it can become kind of like, oh yeah, some devils are bad and some are good, just like how some humans are good and some humans are bad. The cursed spirits, as we've seen, are all kind of vicious and really evil and malefic, at least from the human perspective. There doesn't seem to be any that are straight like, oh yeah, you know what, I like humans, I want to help you guys. They all seem very aggressive. It's just in their nature. And like you have Sukuna, who's like the head one, and who's like renowned for being this like physical manifestation of like evil and danger, and then just like calamity through like the period that he like kind of was active in. I was hoping maybe they just get really messed up, but like one of the girls like immediately gets her head cut off, or like not even cut off, just removed from her body. Mimiko, like I'm so bummed about it that. And then, like, the other one goes to try and get revenge, and, like, she gets diced up like a freaking watermelon, or like I'm trying to think of it's like something diced up in general, like some cheese or something. And I'm just like, man, so like I said, I didn't really like have their names memorized. I knew of their characters, I knew of their backstory and stuff, but I was ready for like I can't wait till their characters are more prominent, so I can get their names down more, because they're characters I liked. I liked the story piece that they're kind of related to. I liked their designs, and I was interested to see like what they do. And now they're unfortunately dead, and like there's some stuff in the future like set up, obviously, with like Jogo is trying to like get him to help. He's like, he seems to want to work with to work with him, but I think he knows that it's more of like it's a little bit more of like a fair setup. I imagine Sukuna when it comes to like a cursed spirit rather than humans, where instead of it being like trying to respectfully form a trade, like what the girl did, she was like trying to like almost kind of like force one, which clearly did not go well for her at all. Oh man, but it looks like Sukuna's trying to be a little bit. He's trying to be a little bit nice because he's like, well, you did do this for me, so I guess I can do something for you. And he's like, okay, well, trying to form a biting contract to try to do things. He's like, no, I don't want to do that. I got my own stuff. But how about I kill every human in Shibuya? And it's like all but one, and I'm pretty sure the one is Megumi because we know that he had interest in Megumi. Oh man, my only hope. My own fingers crossed. It's very unlikely. I have to go back and look at the exact description. But I remember there was the thing of like when they're explaining how cursed spirits are formed. It's like because shamans. They said that and sorcerers at the time like with that chapter when it was a fan translation, right? It was shaman. But I had to go back and look at the officials. But it was like the sorcerers don't really make cursed spirits. Like the way that the curses are formed, it's because like non-sorcerers can't control like the cursed energy coming off them, so it kind of just radiates and eventually like it radiates out of their body, eventually will form into a cursed spirit. But the sorcerers, I'm thinking back at this point, so I'm like in my brain at that time, obviously I was calling them shamans, but these sorcerers, when they die, there's like a method that they can create a cursed spirit, like the amount of cursed energy in their body. I think it was like if they have something like a lot of resentment or a lot of just like negative emotions upon death. So there's the possibility that these girls could at least kind of come back as a cursed spirit. Maybe one or two, maybe they'll kind of be like together as a cursed spirit, like some form of weird Gemini setup, or maybe they'll each have one. I don't know. It's very unlikely. I'm actually kind of bummed that they're dead because they could have died at any point before this, and I would have been like, damn, that sucks. But I was so hyped. I was actually really hyped to see what they did. Because I liked the whole plot that they had going on where they wanted to defeat the Brain Invader and get Geto's body back. I liked that a lot. And we're not getting that, unfortunately, at least from their standpoint, considering they're dead. But, I don't know, we'll see. I'm very hyped to see this next chapter because now Sukuna's out and he's apparently going to go ape shit and start slaughtering people. But I'm legitimately bummed about those girls. Man, I really wanted to see what they were gonna do in the story, and I didn't even really get to see their name for much. Sad face, and it's one of those deaths where it's like I wasn't attached to them, but I thought I would be after a while. Like I was like, man, I bet I'm gonna really like their characters. I like their dedication to Geto, and I know where their origins are, and I saw them in Volume 0, but to no avail. Maybe they'll come back as a cursed spirit kind of setup thing. We'll see. Either way. Anyway, I'm still wondering if Mahito is actually like caused from when Geto died. Maybe, I don't know. I'm working back some old theories and stuff because I'm just a little bit bummed. But anyway, other than that, though, comment below. Thumbs up the video before the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everyone's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.